Like to call to order the Parks and Public Works Committee regular meeting for April 23rd, 2024. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Albert.
Here.
Here is not here. Johnson is not here. Kimball.
Here.
Roach.
Here.
And then Hoffman. Here.
Like to welcome our newest, thank you. Like to welcome our newest member, Brian Hoffman. Confirmed last night, so nothing like the last minute, but here we are and we're excited to have him and get things underway. With that, can I get approval of today's agenda?
I move to approve today's agenda.
And I will second that.
Motion by Kimball, second Roach. This is a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Motion carries. Can I get an approval of minutes, special meeting March 15th and regular meeting March 26th? Motion to approve.
I will motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Roach, second Hoffman. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. On to public comments on today's agenda topics only, limit 3 minutes. We don't have anyone in the gallery. Anyone online care to make a comment on today's agenda? Seeing none, we can move on to our review and discussion for our meeting. Item number 1, if the city manager wants to kick us off for the pallet sign design and traffic light.
Sure, Madam Chair. So for the last few months, the Parks Public Works Committee has been reviewing some potential pallet sign design options for Lake and Blue Star for the new multimodal trail that's planned for the area. So after kind of a few different meetings and kind of looking at the various options, I think based on the feedback from your last meeting, I think kind of combination of option 2A, 2B, which was kind of the original notation, was where you landed. So there was some requests at the last meeting to kind of put a little bit more dimensional detail on the plan, so you could see exactly how far the pallet sign would be moving. And so C2AE, the engineers on this project have worked on providing that detail to you. So if Sarah, if you could pull up page 16. It's a little difficult to see in your printed packet, and we should be able to show it on your screen here. Yes, please. And can you share that for the, like through Zoom too? So that way if there's. All right. So if you kind of zoom in, Sarah, kind of it's on the middle of the page there. Zoom in. Not,
Right.
there we go. All right. Yeah, a little bit more.
My glasses.
A little bit more.
Okay.
A little bit more if you can. Yeah, there we go. All right. So. There we go. So you can kind of see that notation there that on the kind of right side of your screen that says 4.8 feet. That's showing, and it kind of has a, essentially you're shifting the pallet sign of nearly 5 feet, is what that shift is there. The kind of lighter rectangle behind it is the current location of the pallet sign, and then the darker line is showing the relocated sign. And then
Brian, can you point that out? Where,
Sure.
what do you mean?
Brian, will you hold your microphone so that people online can hear him talking? Is that helpful? I don't know if it works or not, but.
So the lighter line here is the existing pallet sign.
Uh-huh.
And then this is where the pallet sign would be moving to. Right here shows the shift from here to here is 4.8 feet. Then you're looking at what Jared clarified, looks like a 1/4 of a foot shift forward as well.
So it's
potentially,
closer to
so.
Lake Street and not down the ravine is what he's saying,
Got
the
it.
shift on the sign.
Okay,
My understanding, right?
is that,
Right,
Okay.
that's accurate, Jared?
Yes.
Yep, so.
Yeah.
So not a ton of movement of the pallet sign, but enough to move it to make sure that there's, adequate space for the trail. I think initially there was some discussion at one of your first meetings where this was discussed about maybe even leaving it where it was. And then there was concerns about maybe not having enough, separation maybe between the trail and the pallet sign. So they've also updated and you can zoom back out, the kind of the intersection layout and kind of took out that middle pedestrian island that there was some discussion at the last meeting about whether that was necessary or not, especially if there was going to be signals and things like that. There's also some concerns raised by the Department of Public Works related to plowing and whether or not that was going to be an impact on their operations there, as well as frankly the ability for those larger trucks to have space as they're turning as well. So the intersection design has been updated, and then really the traffic signal, my understanding in talking with Jared is that the traffic signal placement is really dependent on what the ultimate final design of the intersection will be. But in your packet is another copy of the rendering that they're working off of that Fleece and Vanderbrink, our city's engineers, had previously developed. And so that's their traffic signal design will be consistent with that rendering. Correct, Jared?
Yes.
All right. Anything else that I missed, Jared, that you want to add or touch on as we're?
No, we didn't look at the other plan because we did give kind of a more overhead view of the intersection, not specific to the landscaping. Not too many details there other than what you're going to be seeing with the roadway markings. That detail's included on the other sheet. Yeah, we did want to look at that. So
that's page 17 of your packet. And Sarah has that on the screen for you.
Now, Nancy, I know you had questions on the light and placement.
Right, just that this diagram doesn't show, show where the traffic light would be placed. And Jared, can you comment on that?
yeah, so we are using a sub-consultant who specializes in traffic signal design. And with them, it's not so much the kind of conceptual design iterations that we've been working on for our layouts. We want to give them an approved layout so that they can go to work with the traffic signal design. We need to get this approved before they get started on it. So we are anticipating doing the traffic signal in the locations that we've shown on the rendering from F&V. However, as far as the process goes, we need to have this nailed down before our sub-consultant starts working on it, just in case there's anything that changes down the road design wise.
You mean the pallet sign needs to be finalized and then you'll be able to decide where the light goes exactly? Is that?
Well, this whole intersection in general, the traffic signal is for the intersection. So, as far as what we're doing, where the lane goes, how much curb we're adjusting, we need to have that all finalized before our traffic signal sub-consultant starts moving forward with their design.
Jared, can I just ask you, when I look at this rendering, the bigger overhead one, and it shows the 10-foot merge lane and the 10-foot through lane, going south.
Mm.
We still do have the center lane, for the, the fire trucks, how they wanted that middle lane. Is that still there?
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
that
it
left
just
turn
doesn't really
lane.
show up.
Where are you talking about, Nancy?
On the, when you're making your right turn? Okay, and so when I'm looking at this diagram, I see the through lane and the merge lane. But the merge lane would merge into the through lane, right? So is there still a middle lane?
Are you-
think
Are you talking about on the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I just don't see it on the
Yeah.
diagram. That's why I was just clarifying.
Yeah, so this doesn't go to as far as the bridge.
But that left turn lane there, Nancy, would be where your 3 lanes are. You got northbound, southbound, and the left turn lane.
I see it going north. I'm just was trying to make sure that there's still
Sure.
one going south.
The turn lane?
Yeah, when you're when you're at the intersection and making your right turn, there's the merge lane and there's the through lane. But right now there's also a center lane.
That's the turn lane, though, that I think.
Right, so just, my understanding was, you
Hmm.
know, the fire chief wanted to make sure that we kept that middle lane, you know, that you didn't really drive in. And that's still there, right?
So that's as, yeah, okay, so as you, I don't think that this plan's just showing the more immediate intersection, but you're talking as you go further west.
Towards Douglas.
Right, yep, towards Douglas. I mean, it's what they have shown there matches exactly what's there now. There's kind of that lane to merge into the through lane. And then there's a left turn lane, and then there's a through lane, and then eventually it does turn into,
The left turn lane turns into the fire chief lane, so to speak.
right,
Okay,
so then
all right.
eventually it turns into,
Yeah.
and so, yes, Jared, none of that's changed as you approach the bridge or on the bridge, correct?
Correct. And other than, you know, the modifications being made at the bridge and a little bit here at this intersection, there's nothing being changed within the roadway for where the trail runs, you know, other than the crossings.
Okay,
So where are we garnering the space for, or from, for the bikes then? If none of that is changing?
Jared, can you
Removing the
speak to
pallet
that?
sign.
No,
But
on
4.5 feet,
on the
I mean,
bridge
that's-
side, like,
Yeah,
so,
What was the question
yeah,
again?
so where is the bike lane actually at?
In
Right now,
relation to
there's
the
sidewalk,
pallet
there's a
sign?
little bit of,
Hang on, let him answer.
Are you talking about at like the other side of Lake, like where the pallet sign is, or are you talking about towards the bridge?
towards the bridge. I'm just trying to visualize this whole thing, because if all of the lanes are remaining as they are, per Nancy's question with what Chief Janik is requiring for that middle turn lane,
right,
then how do I visualize where the space is, where the bike lane is coming through?
Doesn't that stay the same as it is now?
well,
Where you do the merge lane, there's the bike lane that goes along the side, no?
well, there's a little bit of shoulder.
There's the sidewalk and then there's the bike lane. There's not much of a bike lane there. So I wasn't sure if
Okay.
if we're taking some of that space and widening that, or what's happening.
And that's what I want Jared to speak to as well.
You're talking about between the bridge and the Lake Street intersection?
On the bridge.
Correct.
Oh, okay. We do have sent that in the preliminary plans, what our, you know, profile view and layout looks like for that. I can pull that up if that would be helpful.
I was under
I
the
think it's
assumption
gonna be-
stay the same.
I think
That's
it's
my-
It is staying the same.
That's my assumption.
Uh,
Well, I just
I
want
think the
clarification.
roadway is staying the same, but the question then is how do you squeeze the bike lane in there?
Right.
And I've always kind of had that question myself.
Okay.
But wait, if the roadway's the same and there's already a bike lane, then what's the problem?
There
Bike lane
is a bike lane.
Very small.
Right, but it might have to be small in that area.
Yeah, but so that's my
can't be.
question. Were we taking any of that space from the middle lane?
From the roads. Oh, I don't know about that.
So that's,
I think the traffic lanes are supposed to get a little bit narrower. And then I think, you know, it's just going to butt right up to the sidewalk. But there is supposed to be, we've talked about that there'd be like a raised curb separating the bike lanes from the traffic
I
lanes.
understand.
okay. As much as what they have in Douglas or less than? 'Cause that's really
Probably
raised.
about the same, but not with but they kind of have an island.
Yeah,
We would just have like a skinny curb.
yeah. Okay.
But
That
then,
makes sense.
yeah, but
Okay.
then we've also talked about putting, you know, like a kind of a decorative separator. That's, you know,
It
another,
looks like not space for that.
well, it'll be sitting right on top of the curb.
Okay.
So, so the original design, actually, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, really just, you know how they have those little, white plastic things? That's what was
Yeah.
in the original design,
Okay, so there was no physical
except.
cement barrier or anything. It was just those stakes.
Right.
I
but
remember
now
you guys didn't like those. You guys didn't like.
We
those
don't like
things, yeah.
those, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, so actually, Richard Donovan, you know, who's on the front, he did a lot of research and came up with this other option, which is kind of really cute, looks a little more attractive. And the idea was if we put in a concrete curb, put these things on top of it, that would give us some separation and
And then a visual on top of it.
a visual, right? So,
So Sarah, can you stop sharing for a second? Yeah, 'cause Jared, did you want to, did you have something to share? Okay, we'll make you a
And-
co-host.
This was the graphic that was provided with the original design. Some small edits to this are as Nancy mentioned, this is where we talked about the putting the curb.
Yeah, just a second here.
Um,
We're not seeing where you're talking about yet. So,
That's
Sarah,
a
can you-
two-step problem.
There we go. Yep.
See it
There
now?
we- All right.
Okay.
So it seems like, yeah, if the lanes stay the same, how is there room for that?
Right. Just
And I think the lanes
ridden
are
that,
getting
it's
more
tight.
narrow.
Okay.
Is that correct, Jared?
Say that again.
I said the lanes, the traffic lanes are actually going to be a little more narrow, aren't they?
Correct. This will, and you guys are seeing the layout right now.
Can we move back to it, please?
He had it up there.
Yeah, can we move back to that one? Is that
Yeah.
you, Jared? that has it
Okay, you
up?
can see that.
There you go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay, so
Okay, so which way are we going?
this would be looking north.
Okay, we're
So
heading
this would
north.
be on
right
the
now.
Douglas side. And what we had discussed is, this was a plastic bollard that was included in the original design just for this graphic, but stakeholders didn't like that. So we had discussed putting in that raised curb with a kind of a decorative wave delineator. That'll be between the traffic lane and the bike lane.
Okay, so are we stealing from the shoulder? So there's the sidewalk and then a little bit of the shoulder on the east side of the street? So then that's being put on the other side and then potentially narrowing the lanes, and that's where we're getting the space for this to be
Yes.
going both ways. Okay.
How
thank
wide
you.
is the bike lane right now? Like 5 feet?
There really isn't a bike lane per
There's a
se.
bike lane.
I mean, it's just a
No.
tiny shoulder.
There's just a little bit of shoulder.
So if it's
very
gonna go to
small.
9 feet, then you're right, then it's gonna come from somewhere. If it says 4.5 and 4.5, but I mean, to my mind, there's a bike lane there,
So
but
I mean, for instance, I don't let my kids ride on that. They,
Yeah.
when we go by, they go on the sidewalk because
Okay.
that's just, the cars go so
Kind of a
fast.
wide
It's
shoulder.
so close. Okay, so some of it's coming off the shoulder then.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
sense. Thank you.
right.
That's very helpful.
Does that make sense to you,
So it's-
Nancy? Are you good with
It's
that?
being
Yes.
shifted
Yes.
in that
it's
way.
like
And then
the roadway's
everything's
gonna be
aligned on the
compressed a
west
little
side.
bit, and then, yeah,
Got
and
it.
the shoulder will be eliminated and
And Scott, as far as you know, does what is it? So we're 33 feet on the road that accommodates the emergency vehicles and that sort of thing? Do we have any issues there? We take some of the shoulder for the bike lane?
Not that I'm aware of
Okay.
at the moment.
All right.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And then 4.5 and 4.5. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So the last question I have is just going back to the pallet sign. Is there money in the grant fund to cover all of this, or is there any extra cost associated with our pallet sign relocation plan?
So based on the estimated
City.
cost right now, the,
I'm talking,
the,
is
Oh,
the city
sorry.
going to get an extra bill?
for the,
Does the
But-
grant cover it? You know, the original grant? We
Yes.
always knew we needed to move the pallet sign. So with the design that we've selected and the plan that we've got here, is there any incremental cost to the city, or are we good? Because the grant money is adequate, we think, to cover all this.
yes, everything included with the pallet sign changes would be included under the grant.
Okay.
And as of right now, the only item that we've identified that wouldn't be eligible for the Blue Star Trails grant would be the traffic signal.
Right, okay. That's perfect.
yeah, and there's room in the grant at least, and that's based on even the updated construction estimates that that C2AE was able to put together. So luckily, the construction estimates are coming in as expected, even though this was kind of all put together, a few years ago. You don't always
Really
see
surprising.
that.
That's
And
wonderful.
so,
Yeah.
so, now granted, that's not bid yet, so, but
Right.
and maybe we'll end up in the other direction, be even happier, but so yeah, those updated numbers are looking good to include the pallet signal work. I appreciate Ms. Roche for forwarding a grant opportunity that has arisen related to that we might be able to apply for to have the traffic signal work covered under a separate grant. It kind of aligns well with the goals of this project, and so Jared was able to hop on a webinar last Friday to kind of learn more about the opportunity, and feels that that we may be a good candidate. Obviously, it's competitive. There's only so many dollars, but answer's definitely no if we don't apply.
Exactly. Yes.
And in fact, Jared this morning had emailed me that we do have some contingency built into the general services contract as it relates to, work on the pallet sign and the traffic signal. that we could probably use to have C2AE work on that application and submitting those materials, and cross our fingers that that we're successful. So, and really the turnaround's fairly quick on us to get an answer on that. I think it was like June or July, wasn't it, Jared, or something like that? Or maybe that's when it was due. but
Yeah, it was, the due date for the application is June 7th, I believe, and then you'll get an answer within 90 days, was what they said.
Which in government world, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So,
That's wonderful.
yeah, so, which would line up well. I mean, and essentially, for the PPW's purpose, I did my budget presentation last week to the city council and we've included a request to the council to have them, fund the traffic signal work. Great if we get a grant. If not, we're asking them to at least budget for the dollars to pay for it. And that's really consistent with the recommendation of two different engineering studies indicating that there's a need for a signal at this intersection, especially if you were going to be, adding a trail through this area. So,
And it makes no sense not to address that while we're doing the trail. I mean, that would be really inefficient and so happily this dovetails nicely. I'm happy to see that.
Right. I had a couple things for clarification since I went back through the meeting minutes and we kind of played ping pong going over that turn radius and then the curb. So I just want to make sure I have full understanding of where we're at, Jared. So, and Scott, Nancy, I know you were on Zoom, so you couldn't really comment. And I know we got John's comments, but Scott, if anything has changed, the truck turning radius, we do not believe is an issue. So as it stands, we're good with moving forward with just doing the rolled curb and the smaller curb size. And that should be sufficient and also more, less expensive for the city. in terms
absolutely,
of-
yeah.
And then we don't have to change as much in terms of the pallet location
That's right.
because of that, with the
Yep.
setbacks. Okay. We're all square on that
Yep.
one? Because that
You're
one,
right. We went back at the
it went
one
back
day
and
then he came
forth
back,
where
yes,
there was
so-
a need and then we sort of talked
Yes,
through and it was great
yeah.
that John was here and you were here to
Yeah.
kind of walk us through that. But I just want to make sure we
Yeah, that's
all
my
land on the same
understanding.
thing. And then is that your understanding and you're comfortable with that as far as?
Yes, as
moving
long
ahead
as,
with that?
Jared, you're comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that was it for me. Thank you.
Nancy, you get anything else?
I'm good.
No? Brian, you
Nope.
good? All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to take this to council.
I will motion to recommend that city council approve the Lake Blue Star intersection improvements, including pallet sign movement and landscaping consistent with the designs and installation of a traffic signal consistent with the renderings.
Is this a roll call or voice vote?
roll call's fine, doesn't hurt.
Just a second.
But yes.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
would be
second,
good.
yes.
Yep.
I'll second.
Motion for a
That's
second.
important, yes.
Second, Kimball, yes, thank you. Any further discussion or are we ready to vote? Okay.
Sorry, I was ready.
Okay.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Yes. Kimball.
Yes.
Roach
Yes.
and Hoffman.
Yes.
Motion carries. Wonderful.
All right, we'll work on,
Press.
reviewing this with city council and, based on your recommendation as well as, the historic district commission as it relates to the pallet sign movement. But I'm sure they'll be happy to see it's not a dramatic change or anything along those lines. So.
Okay. So our next item B, unfortunately, member Johnson isn't here because I know this is one is near and dear to her heart. But it's about having some land engineering and landscape architecture services proposed for Park Street. I don't know if city manager wants to take that away.
Yeah, I mean, just from a high level perspective, your last meeting, you discussed some interest in maybe kind of moving to maybe the next step and looking at Park Street planning, conceptual design and as it relates to kind of offering more pedestrian friendly corridor. So our engineers at Fleece and Vanderbrink have put together kind of the next step as far as, the survey work that would be needed. As well as kind of what that planning phase would look like. It's not there's some costs there. We did discuss this with the city council as well. Initially, staff didn't include this within the budget proposal for next fiscal year with, larger concerns related to just funding, overall improvements. I mean, it's a huge chunk of dollars. We have other projects that are ahead of it on the capital improvement plan. Except for there's kind of a stretch from the chain ferry to Mount Baldhead that we're looking at because there's some retaining wall work that's needed in there. So there's an opportunity to maybe chunk some of the work, but the city council felt that that this was kind of an important next step and they were willing to fund this proposal. So we're working on adding that into the proposed budget for next year. But wanted to make sure that you had a chance to kind of, take a look at the work that was planned and we're at least aware of it. So.
So we can open up for discussion. I mean, I would say from my perspective, and I've always had this position, is that I think that we need a more walkable Park Street. Whatever we need to do to get to that point is definitely been a matter of, it's just been a hot topic. People have a lot of different opinions about, do we, move the landscaping and, the encroachments. I mean, there's encroachments from the city to the homeowners and in the opposite way a lot. I am absolutely in favor of whatever it's going to take for us to get something that is safe and practical along Park Street. For those of you who travel it, and I'm broken record, I would say all the time, I live on that side of the river. If I want to go to Mount Baldhead, I drive because I'm just afraid of getting hit by a car. It's definitely, I believe it needs attention. I think it's time. I know that anything that we do is going to take, given the expenses required, 3 years, 5 years. I don't know what that looks like, but this is a good place to start. And now we've had, some of the pushback that we hear from Park Street, some people at Park Street are fully in favor of it. Others are saying, and not that that's a be all and end all, but others are, we've had a ton of studies and, let's stop with the studies. But something like this, I do agree with Member Johnson that we haven't had a holistic approach from a landscape architecture design. And I do agree with her on that, it's kind of time for us to take a look at this. So I would be in favor of this and I welcome any discussion.
Mhm. I think this is a logical next step. I mean, anytime you're over there in the summer, you see near misses all of the time. And the fact that this is the pathway to, what Ruth always says is kind of the two gems of town with Oval Beach and Mount Baldhead and the trails at Oxbow Beyond. We need to make sure that we're ensuring safety first and that people are able to have access to that. So I do understand that there's going to be other constraints in terms of things that are ahead of this and the master plan for the city. But I think looking at this, like Helen was saying, from a holistic standpoint and not sort of piecemealing it, for the last year and a half, that's what we've been doing is looking at bits and pieces of it. How can we make small improvements to ensure safety along the way? And I think it has proven that that is not going to be the way forward with this. So I think looking at it on a bigger level, on a bigger scale like this is going to be incredibly helpful. And then we'll see how this
And
lands in terms of timing.
yeah, and I hate to throw in like an additional thing, but it just would be like wonderful. I mean, so different things came up at the council meeting when this was proposed to council in our budget meeting. And one of them was, doing something like how they did Blue Star. One of the members proposed like, hey, what if we got some, sort of funding like Friends of Blue Star? But because the other piece that's just so obvious is this going to Center Street, right? Like we still have the
Yeah.
whole stretch of ferry and it's up a hill and that's Douglas, obviously. So this could be maybe a catalyst to get some movement in that area. Sometimes you look at one thing begets another, but there's a little bit of a walkway on Ferry Street along those newer houses there, but then there's
Down the hill.
nothing a lot down the
Yeah.
hill, and that's a very dangerous hill.
Bad view.
Your limited sight and all that. So anyway, I think that this could really, kind of be a catalyst to get some conversation moving on that, and that yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of whatever we need to do to get that Park Street walkable. It's a shame. We are a walkable community. That's something that we pride ourselves on, is our ability to get around. And this definitely is prohibitive. So I'm in favor of this.
I would just echo, I'm totally supportive of it. Anything we can do to make our community more walkable or bikeable, non-motorized
Okay.
is good.
Member Hoffman, anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just getting to Mount Baldhead if you want to walk is impossible essentially. And so why should that be?
Mhm.
There's no reason for it. If we can find a way to put some kind of pathway and make it a little more accessible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do we need we don't need a motion for this, do we? Is this just really for our discussion? since
Yeah,
council's
yeah.
already taking it out?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. All right, any further questions on this before we move on? All right. Item C, landscaping for City Hall.
Take this one.
Please.
Yeah, yeah, as you can tell from when you walked in today, we're making moves out there. So we're wrapping up kind of what I'm calling phase one of the landscape out there, which was just a reminder, we connected the rain gutters on the building to the catch basin out front, so it connects the gutters to the storm sewer system. Before if you remember, the downspouts kind of came out near the sidewalk on the side of the building and mulch was constantly flowing into the sidewalk. And so this was more of a long-term fix. And then with that too, we replaced some of the concrete out there that was in pretty rough condition. So next, the next phase is, and I think final phase of the landscaping out there is irrigation replacement. We have a lot of established trees. A lot of their root system has pinched off our irrigation system, and we come in, chop them up, splice things back together as best we can. But we have a little bit better way of improving the irrigation out there that involves less maintenance, but then also more importantly, the landscaping. So I do have some information Sarah's going to pull up. So if you, so basically I've been in contact with 3 different landscaping companies. You're welcome to take a look at some of the renderings that I have. The first one, I'll start with the first 2, and then I'll end with the one that I think we're ultimately going to start. At least the one that I'm going to recommend that we start working with and dialing down a little bit more. But the first one is the rendering for Excel Lawn. It doesn't give a whole lot, it's just kind of a concept. It doesn't give great detail or yep, that's the one. Yep. So it's just kind of, one of the notable changes is you'll notice we used to have like a small section of sidewalk in between on the southwest corner, connecting, it kind of hugged the building a little bit more and cut through. It was just kind of an awkward area and pretty redundant if you ask me, because there's another sidewalk, 15 feet away from it that leads to the front of the building. So a lot of the irrigation is going to be going, we laid conduit, and a lot of the irrigation heads are going to be going underneath the sidewalk to the curb area of the street. That'll help reduce it from getting pinched off by trees, and then some of the plantings. And then if you want to go to the next one, which is maybe Kramer Services. This one, I brought a rolled out version of it. This is the one that I got from, that's GMS. Kramer did a great job. They're doing the work out there right now. But this one, it's a little bit hard to get a real good grasp on what exactly that'll look like out in the field just by looking at it this way. And so that's another reason why I really like the next one, which is from GMS. But this looks great. If you look at all the plantings, one of the things that I communicated to the landscaping companies is like, we have a very dated building, and we don't want to put like a bunch of exotic plantings in there to kind of take away from the architecture of the building, but also it just wouldn't match the kind of classic colonial type style that the building really is. And so we're looking for very tried and true, I wouldn't say boring, but very classic looking plantings. So a lot of boxwoods, a lot of, try to stagger different color throughout different seasons. So like some knockout roses, hydrangeas, things that aren't too crazy. But then if you want to pull up the GMS one, GMS, their number came in a little bit high initially. They had a small retaining wall on the front of the building. If you want to go through a few more. Yeah. Yeah, we could go into a huge amount of detail with like specific planting. So we've got all kinds of pictures of like, the kind of the planting inventory, what those look like. But basically I'm just trying to zoom out a little bit and give kind of an idea of what it would look like when it was all said and done without getting into the specifics of every variety of plantings. So that's a good view of the, that would be kind of looking from the Water Street side of it. And then next door, Marta Petter owns the building next door. We've always worked with her on the landscaping. She's more than willing to be helpful and help contribute financially to some of this stuff. But you'll see just some added trees. That area is pretty shaded, and so you're somewhat limited on what plantings you can put back there. But for the most part, that'll really help brighten things up. And if you want to pull up front, there's the side yard. So where you walked up for the ramp.
Yeah.
We have that great big white wall on the left side of the building right there. We'd like to cover that up with, an ornamental tree. And then if you want to look at the front, right there on the left side, you can see that this very short retaining walls, that kind of hugs the sidewalk up in the front of the building. I think because the price came in high, I think we're gonna eliminate that.
Which one?
If you look, along the driveway on the left side of the building up there, you'll see like the little gray strip. It's a really short retaining wall. Yep, right there. To help,
Behind me too.
Yeah.
thank you.
That's general consensus. It should go, yeah.
Yeah, so to help reduce costs, we're gonna eliminate that. Everything, all the flower beds are gonna, hopefully are gonna get somewhat like heavy duty aluminum edging, new irrigation, fresh mulch, and then also too, part of the cost is like, it's all kind of wavy out there right now. So part of it's gonna be bringing in fresh screen topsoil and regrading everything, re-leveling everything, and it's really gonna pop when we're done. So yeah, that front retaining wall, I think that's gonna end up going. And it still looks great without it.
It's got that, the tree to the rear of the building is staying, that's not
The what?
the tree to the rear of the building here towards.
The
Right
one
up.
back here?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the thing is like, if we do too much too quick, then it kind of leaves like this empty blank canvas. Like there's a dead maple tree out front. I think we're gonna pick away at maybe a couple of these at a time, but like the ginkgo out back, it's in declining health, but if we do all of that at the same time, it's gonna look pretty bare. And so we'll try to maybe limp along a little bit with the one that we have back there and maybe get a new tree established up front. And then once that gets established, then we can take out a little bit more and replace.
Scott, has anyone taken a stab at doing some more like drought resistant natives?
Yeah.
Things that won't require as much watering or as much maintenance long-term, but still look really nice for the public?
Yeah, native is a little bit of a challenge. Like if you walk through a nursery, most of the plantings are not native. So when you're talking about doing landscaping improvements, that's, we can try our best to do that, to accommodate that. But one thing that GMS has done for us in the past, like they've done Jones Park, they've done the pallet sign for us, is that we always try to emphasize like, hey, let's give Public Works the best chance of possible to keep this maintained. And so they do tend to opt for more drought tolerant varieties.
Mhm.
Right, I would just echo what Kelly said, and also I feel like we're trying to, I think, kind of put an image out there that we're a natural place to be, and so as much as possible, we would want it to look pollinator friendly, good for the birds and the bees.
Or at least to look like it's been here for a long time. Things that grow here, things that we see.
That's really it. Definitely want to get feedback and take the notes from the comments. So I appreciate the feedback. We're gonna, I think next steps, Ryan and I can kind of review some of the feedback that we've gotten and hopefully get a quote in front of council and get the project across the finish line. I think timeline wise, I think GMS is kind of planning on tackling this in June. So it's not, we always try to get this stuff done before Memorial Day, but the reality is that doesn't always happen. As you can imagine, all landscaping companies are really busy in the spring. And so June, I feel like town is still a little bit calm in June, where like July and August, it's like, no way. So, but, so hopefully that can get completed in June.
Anyone further questions from anybody for Superintendent Herbert? No? All right, thank you, Scott. We can move on to our study group updates. I know invasive species is typically member Chairix. Does anyone have anything to add at this point on invasives? Other than milfoil?
Yeah,
Talk
just-
about that.
Yeah, just to maybe update the PPW that the city council last night did approve another round of milfoil treatment for this summer. So that's moving forward.
One thing I would request on that one is last year when that was done, I happened to be over at the yacht club and kids were sailing
Yeah, they
and the
talked about that.
company, they
Yeah.
did. Yeah, because I did call Scott Dean about it. So they released the chemicals into the water directly where the kids were playing, where they had fallen off boats. We pulled them out, had them take showers immediately, but it was, not a great situation. So I had just requested if, I fully understand the need for this treatment, but if we can work with the company a little bit more closely, just to say, hey, can we do this in off hours since this is such a busy boating lake?
I know that they have I think they had the dates on their schedule, so we can at least work to see when they're planning on doing it, so that way,
Yeah, and the notices, what we noticed about the notices is that they came out afterwards where they're required to put along the dock, they're required to put the notices of what the chemicals were that were being sprayed. But we ended up getting a notice from the yacht club like 2 days later. So, I don't know what the, delay in communication was, if it was on the company or on the yacht club. But if there could be potentially policy with that where they talk to the marinas prior to, so that members are aware that this is going to be going on in the next couple days, and just to keep out of the water at that. And I think it's just right after the treatment occurs that you have to stay out of the water.
yeah, I'll circle back with them on that, at least see what dates they have on their schedule for the treatment and ask them, make sure that they're providing adequate prior notice to,
That would be great. Thank you.
And I think to note too, that Douglas has also agreed to do it too, so we're in lockstep with them. Airport property, does the city manager want to talk about?
Yeah, I can provide a bit of an update. I don't know all the dates lately, but blending together, but certainly the Parks and Public Works Committee had moved along a recommendation to council to take a look at the Outdoor Discovery Center proposal with a donor that's interested in funding that work. The council was open to continuing those conversations and had some kind of follow-up questions for the donor and the Outdoor Discovery Center. So the mayor and I have since met with the donors who are still very much interested in funding the Outdoor Discovery Center proposal. Conservation is an important piece for them. So they would like to see, some form of, I think, conservation easements. And I met with David Nitre yesterday with the Outdoor Discovery Center to discuss the proposal in a little bit more detail to follow up on some of the questions that both I and the council had. And I think we're planning on him coming to the May 8th City Council workshop meeting to kind of walk through the proposal in a little bit more detail, answer any questions that the council may have on conservation easements, what the invasives treatment looks like. And then assuming the council's still comfortable with the proposal and the responses that we provide, we'll probably have it up for a vote at the following regular meeting.
Fantastic. Any questions for city manager or me on that? Okay. We'll move on. Blue Star Multimodal Path. I think we've sufficiently run this to ground today. Are we good?
We are good.
Okay.
I do have one good news as far as our Friends of the Blue Star Trail board. We did get a new board member
Oh,
and I can't pronounce his last name, David, and it starts with an I, and I think you got communication from him about Maple Street. If you can say his name.
Yeah, I can pick, yeah,
Call
I
him
don't know if
David.
I know how to say.
Anyway, he
his last
lives
name,
on
but I know,
Maple
yeah.
Street and and I just, okay, indulge me here. So he said the reason he joined our board was because he'd heard me speak at a public meeting.
oh, nice.
And I was like, well, it was when I stood up and talked about how we couldn't get board members anymore because of all the short-term.
Oh,
rentals.
that's funny. Okay.
And he raised his hand. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that good
Good on
news.
him. That's right. You got to recruit. That's very important. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm glad to see that the board is fulfilled.
And then city manager Cummins, can you remind me of the deadlines as far as the Blue Star Trail again? So we need to get things in at what point?
Well, construction needs to, the grant calls for construction occurring next year. So there's a tighter timeline as far as like state MDOT has provided a certain schedule of things that have to be met, and NC2A has been working through that, and so far they've indicated that we're on schedule. They did kind of caution that if some of the traffic signal and pallet sign pieces had been delayed much more, we probably could run into some delays, but things are moving along, and they're indicating we're on schedule. They're working on some of the environmental and archaeological reviews that were necessary, all part of the schedule. So,
Okay.
in fact, I should have provided the updates to the council and the friends and folks received the updates from C2AE, but I'll include those monthly updates in your packets in the future as well. So you can take a look at, it does a good job of outlining the work that they did in the last period, as well as kind of what they're anticipating for the next period. And then it kind of provides a caution on anything that they might have concerns with. So.
Thank you.
Perfect. Village Square and Playground. You want to talk about it? Or you want me to talk about it? I'm happy to.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, you know, on the committees, you know, well aware that, you know, we had our community, build planned and, you know, a few days before that, you know, the city was sued and, you know, we've since, settled the lawsuit. As part of the agreement, the city can move forward with, building what the agreement calls are the main features, essentially any of the features that were predominantly within the, footprint of the prior playground. And then the agreement calls for any of the agreement calls additional features, the features that were outside of the previous footprint would return to the Historic District Commission for approval. So so we're working on that. The agreement also required us to stake the prior footprint as well as kind of where those main features are going to go. We did that. The neighboring property owner had some concerns about the staking, which was their right under the agreement, and they've asked for, you know, which the agreement called for some survey or engineer level staking. So we're working on getting that scheduled. Scott's talked with Sinclair Design. I mean, they have May 6th through 8th kind of locked in for us for another community build. I got to deal with the staking issue and get that resolved before we can kind of, you know, so I'm hoping, really hoping we can get that done this week. And then I'm really hoping that folks will, you know, given all the circumstances with a short turnaround, will still sign up and we'll have a good, strong community build. So working through a lot of pieces on it. But last night, the city council unanimously approved, you know, that application returning to the Historic District Commission. Same plans that you folks had previously approved. Nothing's changed except for the canoes moved a little bit, it moved south and west to avoid any impact on trees. But otherwise, all the features are the exact same and what we bought. They're in the same places. So we keep working on it.
One thing I think I read in the packet, I'm not sure if it was the council or this one, that's a recommendation that we take extra good care of those trees that were impacted. So are we planning to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, yeah, so the neighboring property owner had hired an arborist to take a look at the work, you know, that had been done out there and its impact on trees. And I think, you know, the city certainly has an interest in making sure that those trees are maintained and taken care of going forward. In fact, you know, getting this playground work done and getting irrigation back in place and everything else is going to help with that process, right? And so Scott's aware of the report. You know, we'll make sure that that we do what we need to monitor the trees and make sure they're good going forward. So,
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
One of the, from a public works perspective, one of the unfortunate aspects of this is that the rescheduling of the community build is during Public Works' annual junk collection week. And so it's not a deal breaker by any means. I really hope that we have enough volunteers because Public Works, given the time constraints and the deadlines that we have with Memorial Day and what all is involved with us getting the town up and running for summer season and the junk collection week, that we're gonna be minimally involved in that community build, other than providing for sure an equipment operator that can run the skid steer with the auger attachment to set the post. But I just want to add that in.
No chance we can, I mean, is junk collection like this big priority? Can we move it to autumn?
It's
even,
on
like?
everyone's tax bill. It's a scheduled,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
It's a thing.
okay.
Not that we couldn't, I mean, but I think we run the risk of having some unsightly junk piles around town for
Fine,
longer than
I understand.
necessary.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Anything else on Playground or Village Square? Okay. Park Street, Mount Baldhead and AT&T status. I don't know. I mean, Mount Baldhead, we know where we're at with that. We've taken that recommendation to City Council. Park Street, we discussed earlier. AT&T status, I don't believe there's much in the way of that.
Yeah, so AT&T is still trying to work through those State Historic Preservation Office approvals, SHPO, the acronym. recently responded with another letter back with some additional questions and things that they wanted AT&T to consider. So, so there's dialogue going back and forth. But it's not an immediate process. I think it's still going to take a while to work through. We've received some feedback from other stakeholders, or SHPO had received feedback from some other stakeholders as well. The likelihood of, it's just going to be a process. We'll put it that way.
Understood.
Chairman Baldwin, have we had council look at what we made motions for last time with Mount Bald Head for the upper deck and the bathrooms? Is that something that's being looked at for budget for?
The upper
Next
deck, we
year,
don't
or-
have a rendering for yet.
Yeah,
But the bathrooms have been sent over.
okay.
Well, there's renderings for the upper deck.
Yeah, I thought we got them
Yeah. So
a week ago.
I think council's seen those.
right. So we haven't, we did, in my budget proposal to the council, we included $500,000 for the bathroom replacement, upper deck work and retaining wall work, as you folks had
Okay.
recommended.
Yeah.
So far, and received any pushback from council on that, and they understood too that some of the work that we're proposing this next fiscal year would involve them using some cash reserves and fund balance to fund some of those projects. So we're still kind of working through that budget process. So assuming the council approves a budget with that in there, then we'll work on bringing forth the engineering proposals from Fleece and Vanderbrink to actually move that work forward and start the engineering work that's necessary to make it happen.
And obviously nothing's decided until the budget's,
Yeah.
approved, but I would be very surprised, to say the least, if we had any pushback on that. Everyone's well aware that Mount Bald Head is in desperate need of repair, and I think that to a person, again, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but that's my understanding, is that to a person, we're all anxious to see this to get started.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the update.
I always hate this line item, review next steps. I feel like we do that along the way, so maybe we can get that one out of the way, but so anybody need any review of next steps per our agenda, or are we good on that? Public comments, again, no one in the gallery, anyone online care to make a public comment? Seeing none. Correspondence you have in your packet, and member closing comments. We'll start this way. We typically go around the room, Brian, for your benefit, and start around, anyone can make any public comment that they have, or any member comments. So Member Kimball would like to start.
No, I'm just very happy that we've made all this great progress on the trail as well as all the other projects. It seems to me like we're kind of ticking them off. So
Me too. I
Good
like
for
it.
us.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see the progress on the Blue Star Trail items, because I know we went back and forth quite a bit on that. And I'm glad to see us be able to have some consensus and move that forward, and happy to see other projects being move forward as well.
Member Hoffman?
I'm happy to be here. Glad to sit here and kind of see how it's all working. And so, yeah, I'm not gonna, I did not contribute much this time, but I'm excited. There's a number of things on here, particularly the Bald Head, Mount Bald Head. I think that's all really exciting stuff that we need to do.
Wonderful, yeah. My comments, I again want to welcome Brian and Hoffman to join us. We're really excited and looking forward to it. He's got a really interesting background, and encourage all the members to reach out to him at some point. Get to know him better if you don't. Got a good design background in that. We're very lucky to have him. And I'm excited about this stuff that we've got moving forward. It's good wins in every direction, and we just got to keep plugging away. And I appreciate everyone's time and your efforts as volunteers. Thank you again. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will motion to adjourn.
Right.
Second.
Motion Roach, second Hoffman. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Under an hour.
Yeah.